What's up, everybody? It's Realistic here, and I'm doing another tutorial for SoundOracle.net. This week I'm doing top 5 plugin EQs. So there's a lot of EQs on the market. It can be hard to choose. It can be overwhelming sometimes. Which ones should you get? Which ones are worth the money? Which ones have the best features? And you don't want to have to spend a bunch of money to find out that you don't like one. So figured I'd do this, hopefully be insightful, hopefully be able to see some EQs that you've been wondering about, see what they are. And if there's any of these EQs that you want to know more about, feel free to let me know in the comment section below, and I can do a full review on it if you want me to. Also, let me know what your top 5 EQs are. Let me know if there's some that you felt I slept on. Let me know if you agree with this list, disagree with them. I want to get a discussion going, and I want to know what your EQs are. So let's go through this. This is top 5 plugin EQs, and remember, this is my top 5. Not your top 5, but my top 5. So let's go. Alright, so we got Pro Tools open up here, and we're going to be going over my top 5 plugin EQs. But before I start, I do want to do just a few honorable mentions, just to talk about some that didn't make the list, but are still very quality EQs that could have made anybody's list. The first one I want to start out with is the Neve 1073. This is a classic one. This one does not get on the list because of its capabilities and the fact that it can do a bunch of stuff, because it really can. It's kind of limited. This one gets on the list because of its tone, and that's something that I definitely wanted to consider when choosing my EQs, not just flexibility and ease of use, but also tone and quality and how it sounds. And when it comes to the Neve 1073, this is iconic, and it's one of the best sounding EQs on low ends. So that's where the magic is on that one. It's the low end. Obviously, you can still use this for top end. It does have a little bit more of a harsher sound up top, but I just wanted to show you that one because this is one that I use on every single one of my 808s, and I use it on a lot of kicks and stuff as well when I have a chance. The next one, this one is a classic mastering plugin, and it gets on the list because its iconic ability for mastering, so I'll give you a little show of that. It stays in the honorable mentions because some of the stuff I don't like that it's so notched and stuff, and also this one takes a lot of power on here. It's the Manly Massive Passive. It takes up a lot of processing. It's a lot going on with it. It's a really big plugin, but I like it because of its feel and everything, how it sounds, and you get different tones too when you are going through the different settings, and that's something that I really like about it. So it's great for mastering, and that's why it hits up on my honorable mention, because it's such a great mastering plugin. All right, last honorable mention here, I have the Psy EQ from Sound Toys. This one was free at the time when I got it, and I like it because it's smooth. It's smooth like butter, and that's why I really like this one. It has limited capabilities to it, but it's a great choice to put on vocals and a great choice to put on things when you're trying to get just a really nice smooth sound. So that's why that hits my honorable mention, because I love the smooth ability to it. It stays in the honorable mention because it does lack a little bit of stuff right here as far as notching and choosing different frequencies. Everything's kind of set for you, so it does lose a little bit of capability, but it sounds really great. So capability is not the only thing that I'm going for when I'm choosing these. I'm also choosing on overall quality. Number 5 right here is a plugin that actually does lack some capabilities, and that's the API 550A or 550B. So this one I'm biased to, because the reason why, even though it's a little limited, I'm biased because when I'm in a lot of studios, I see the hardware version of this, and I love it on so many things, whether it's guitar, strings, vocals, snares. There's so many things that I really, really like on it. We talked about the Neve 1073 having a silky smooth low end. The API 550A and 550B have pristine top ends. It sparkles. It's really beautiful. As you can see, I got 2 versions here. I got a Waves version and a UAD version, so you can get either one. Obviously, if you don't have a UAD interface, you got to go with the Waves one, and I'm going to tell you what, the Waves one goes on sale a lot, so don't ever buy this one at full value, because this plugin pack right here, I ended up getting for like $70 one time, and so I saved like hundreds of dollars just waiting for it to go on sale. It always goes on sale. But for me, the UAD one wins the cake for me because I feel like it's just a little bit more close to the hardware version. But I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's got a beautiful top end, and it does have a little bit more possibilities with the notches here than we see with other notch plugins. If you remember that Psy EQ, we didn't really have a lot of capabilities here. This one we do. So let's take a listen to this. As you can hear, that has an absolutely beautifully stunning top end, and that's why it hits my top 5, because of that gorgeous top end in there. And if you're ever around the hardware, you should definitely take the opportunity to use that one. You will not be disappointed. All right, the next one that I'm going to talk about is going to be your DAW's EQ. All right, so your DAW's EQ, you should not sleep on this one. It can have a lot of capabilities, and it's really good too to get to know how your DAW's EQs work before you go out and start buying a bunch of plugins and stuff like that. Because if you understand how the EQs work and stuff, you don't really have to spend a lot of money. It's more about understanding what they can do and really knowing how they can do it. Once you start buying other EQs, you're really buying them more for extra features that they have, as we'll get in, and also tone, as we talked about earlier. Some EQs just have different tones and do things a little bit differently and have a different sonic sound to it. But don't sleep on the DAW one. The Pro Tools one, the EQ7, it's all right. You know, I definitely like the Ableton one a lot better as far as DAW stock plugins, and I'll show you that in a second. But you know, it's everything that you're gonna want it to do as far as low cuts and high cuts will be in there for a lot of your DAW EQs here, and then being able to change the Q and stuff like that, being able to do more narrow or wide cues if you need, and put different bands on there, being able to boost and cut, being able to scope out. So, you know, the capabilities of your DAW's EQ is just fine, and you can definitely get a lot of stuff done. So don't sleep on that. And let's check out the one in Ableton, because I think that EQ8 in Ableton has so much possibilities, and I really love it, and you get a lot of bang for your buck on that one. So here's Ableton open up here, and this stock plugin in Ableton is just so good that I had to open this up and show you this one in particular. This one is a great version, and so honestly, if you're an Ableton user, you're going to be just all right with this one. It has the ability to do different bands here. You can do different types of bands. I really like too that you're able to zero out on frequencies like other EQs that we'll get into in a little bit that allow you to do that, so you can really hone in and see what the problem is. You also have the ability to do mid-side EQ as well, which is great, being able to do that, being able to zero in on things differently. I do have a video on mid-side EQ, and I explain it and I talk about that. So this is why this EQ gets in there. It allows you to change things as far as if it's a bell, or if it's a low shelf or a high shelf and stuff like that. So it's a lot of great capabilities to it. Switch things out. I can switch that to a low shelf, or I can switch that to a low pass, stuff like that. And I can toggle between that. I can go with stereo. I can go with left and right, EQ those differently. And you can see too that none of this stuff, if I change something on my right side, I can go back to stereo, and stuff stays like that. So it's really nice. I like to be able to choose my cues differently. Some EQs choose the cues for you. This is one where you can choose your own cues, and you can choose your frequencies. It's really flexible. So this is why this is one of the best DAW stock plugins. And like I said, don't sleep on DAW stock plugins. You can definitely get a lot done with it, and if you know how to use them, you're going to be just all right. All right, so number 3 on my list is the Oxford Dynamic EQ. This is by Sonex. This one you can get on the Sonex website, or if you have a UAD interface, you can also get the UAD version. That's the one I have. The only difference between it is the UAD version can run off DSP, so then I'm not using my computer's processing, because these are both made by Sonex. Sonex actually just put this in the UAD store, so it's not like how it is with the Waves versus the UAD 550A or SSL SSL ones where there is a difference in tone and characteristic. This is just because you'll be able to run this off DSP versus not being able to run it off DSP. So I put this one in my top 5 because, one, I use it all the time, and number 2, it's in my top 5 because I had to have a dynamic EQ in here as well. So now if you're wondering what a dynamic EQ is, as if a multi-band compressor met with a regular EQ, and that's what you get, because what you can do is you can figure out frequencies and stuff like that, and then you can compress those frequencies down at a very narrow band while still EQing them out, which is really nice because you can kind of just ease stuff and get some resonating frequencies kind of ducked down a little bit if you don't want to carve them out, but just have them being pushed down a little bit. So I'll show you that. And one of the reasons why this is my favorite dynamic EQ is, one, it looks really good. That is something important to me. I spend countless hours each day mixing and staring at a screen. So honestly, when I am looking at something on a screen, I do want to look at something that's pleasing. That's why the Waves REQ is not in my top 5 because I can't stand to look at it. It looks like Windows 95 when I look at it. So that's why that one didn't make my list. This one, like I said, is visually pleasing, and I like that I can zero out frequencies, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So you see, I can come to this little headphone, and I can zero out frequencies that I'm trying to duck down a little bit. You know, and so if I hear something that's resonating a little bit right there, I can just compress that down. And right here, we have all of our controls here as far as everything you'd see on a compressor. We have our threshold, our attack release right there, so I can control how I want it. And you can see when this kick drum strikes here, it's pressing down, but nothing else is triggering it. Another thing that I really like about this EQ is it gives you a lot of options as far as if you want to compress and EQ the stereo sound, the left or right channel, or if you want to do mid-side EQ, which is really awesome. If you want to know more about mid-side EQ, I do have a full tutorial on mid-side EQ, so you should check that out if you're curious. But this allows you to being able to not only EQ, but compress things just in the mids or just the sides. And you see we get a little bit different of a tone there. So that's really nice, and I'll show you too. We can compress the sides and EQ the sides versus stereo. It's an EQ that I use on every single one of my master channels. This is my go-to for mastering. I have a couple EQs that I use for mastering, but this is one that's on there, every single one, because I do like to be able to compress frequencies down a little bit, and that helps a lot. So dynamic EQ had to hit my list, and this is the dynamic EQ that I know and I love. All right, next on my list is the SSL EQ. This is number 2. I have it on my list because of its capabilities. It has really great ability to zero in on frequencies. Things aren't notched, which I really like. Gives you a lot of flexibility. Waves and UAD makes a version of it. Again, like I said with the 550A and B, don't buy this at full sale. Wait till it goes on sale, and it always goes on sale because normally this is like a $500 or $600, and it always goes on sale for like $200 if this is an EQ that you're interested in. So we're gonna focus on the UAD one because this is the one that I use the most, and I like the tone of it. One thing that's really cool about this EQ is not only are you getting EQ, you get a full channel strip in here. So we got some filters, and then we got compressors, and then we got gates as well. So I really like that. This EQ sounds really great on all types of things: kick, snare, vocals, strings, bass. It just sounds great on so many different things. It's got an iconic sound, so if you're going for a more industry sound to it, this is definitely the EQ that a lot of people in the industry use. So you'll get that industry sound because this is literally what people in the industry use a lot. lot of times, especially back in the day when they were using the SSL boards. I used to work on an SSL duality. I fell in love with the EQ there, and I love the plugins as well. So I'll show you this a little bit as far as the flexibility. This one has a little bit more bite to it, so you want to make sure that when you use it that you're ready for that, and you want to have something that has a bite to it, and you want to have something that kind of has that grit to it. It's not a smooth EQ, but it does have its own character, its own unique sound to it. It's also really good for cutting frequencies if you're looking to do that as well. So you can see there I had a lot of flexibility of choosing what frequencies I want. It's not notched. I can really zero in on things, and I can really zero in on my cues, and I can zero in on the amount that I'm boosting or cutting as well, unlike the Neve 1073 or API 550A and B, where I'm kind of stuck with things, or that Psy EQ, I was stuck with things, or the Massive Passive was another example of ones where I was stuck with choosing between different notches and choosing between different frequencies and dB amounts. So that's really nice, and you could hear too that bite in it. It's got really nice air up top. It's got a really nice punch when you're boosting stuff down the high mids. I'll show you this on the kick drum as well, because it does have some good capabilities for drums in there. I think it sounds really great. I use this on kick drums actually quite a bit. You can hear the filters are a little more aggressive, so I usually don't use this for filtering too much, but again, it has a really good low end to it. It's got a really good top end to it, so it's got a good balance between that. It's definitely a workout horse, and I recommend using this on a lot of projects and stuff if you have them. All right, so my number one EQ, I got it already loaded up right here. When I go to my favorites, it's the FabFilter Pro Q2. There should be no surprise there. If you've seen any of my tutorials, this one shows up on every single one of my tutorials, and I'm about to show you why I love this EQ so much. It's because it's got a lot of possibilities to it. They thought of everything except being able to have a dynamic EQ in it. That's the one thing that I wish that it had. If this had a dynamic EQ, this would probably be the only dynamic EQ I would use, because I like that it has so many bands. Because one of the things about the Oxford dynamic EQ is it's limited in bands. You can only have up to 5 bands at once, and that's a little disappointing because sometimes I want to use more than that. This one right here, you can use just endless bands. You can just make these all day if you want, and make as many different types of bands as you want, and there's no limit to it. So that's one reason why it's in there. Number 2, it's beautiful. It's got an elegant design to it. I think they made this thing looking absolutely beautiful. I love it. I like that it does have a spectral analysis on it. You pull me in and I don't know. So we can see the waves on there. A lot of EQs I showed you before, you weren't able to see that. Other than the Oxford dynamic EQ, we didn't get to see any of the waveforms on there. So that's really nice to be able to have as well. I like too that there's just things where you can just double click on the bottom and it already makes your filters. Double click on the top, you already got some filters going there. So it's got a really intuitive design, which I really like to it. I also like too, I can switch to mid-side EQ if I want, and being able to choose between sides and mids and being able to do that, I think is really cool and really useful, because I definitely use mid-side EQ a lot when I'm mastering. And like I said, I got that mid-side EQ video that I did, and I talk about why I like it on mastering. And I got the ability to be able to zero out frequencies, which is really important to me. and I can, zero out from anywhere. And it's just really easy too. You just click on something, or you just double click, or just drag down. That's so intuitive to me. I think that's absolute gorgeous design right there. There's not another EQ that I really know that has the capability of doing that. You see, even too, when I pull down here, it knows to make a low shelf, or when I pull up here, it knows to make a high shelf, versus if I'm in the middle, it knows to make a bell. I can obviously switch these if I want. I can switch the shape if I want it to be notched out, if I want it to be like a band pass, if I want it to be really anything, which is great. It's really nice too, because you can't tell because I'm on the screen. What I'm able to do with my finger here is I'm able to roll on the mouse wheel, or in this case the Magic Mouse's interface. I'm able to just roll, and it changes the cue. You can also do it if you hold down the command or control button on your computer, and you just hold it down and lift up and down. It will change the cue. So that's something that I really like, versus there's other EQs where you have to like go and you have to push something to move the cue, and it's just, so it makes it for really fast things. I also like this too. I can just highlight things, and I can move multiple things at once, right? And I can move cues, I can lower cues if things are highlighted, and just move them around. So if I like the overall position of things, but I really want to bring everything down a little bit, or if I want to ease up on everything, I can just highlight and then just lift up. So that's something that I really like. I also like too that it gives me the option to do natural phase, linear phase, or zero latency. Zero latency is really great for mixing because it doesn't take up quite as much CPU, versus linear phase is really nice for mastering because it's a little bit more soft and true to the transients, and it's just a little bit better as far as trying to master, to keep true to all those dynamics and the transients that's going on when you're doing the mastering. So this is why this one hits number one for me. It has endless possibilities. It's one of the few EQs that you can resize as well, which is kind of nice to be able to do stuff like that. You can EQ the left and right channel differently if you want, so that's kind of cool. If you got something that's like maybe like a cowbell that's just a little too aggressive on a master channel, you can EQ that just out just a little bit. So that's a really nice option there. You can split things, which is cool. Just being able to just split the bands makes it really easy. So I feel like they've thought about just about everything, except obviously the dynamic part of it. I wish that they had a dynamic EQ, but who knows? Maybe Pro Q3 will have the dynamic EQ. Anyways, that is my top 5. Hope you like it, and let me know in the comment section below if you want me to do a review on any of these, or let me know what your top 5 are and which ones you like the most. So I'm hoping that you got a lot out of this tutorial today. Hopefully there's some information that was useful. If you're getting a lot out of this but you want to see more, please feel free to comment below. Let us know what kind of tutorials that you want to see in the future, and Oracle and I can definitely make that happen. We're always trying to find the content that you want to see. If you're liking what you're hearing from me, you can find me everywhere on social media at Realistic Productions. You can find me at the web, realisticproductions.net. You can find my man SoundOracle everywhere at SoundOracle. And if you're looking for the best 808s, the best kicks, the best snares with the craziest loops and samples you can find on the internet right now, go to SoundOracle.net. All right, till next time.
From SoundOracle.net.